Hi, everybody, and welcome to Mrs. Mummypenny Talks. And we are back again with another guest and a subject that I'm really, really excited to talk about from a personal perspective and from a perspective that I know a lot of you will be really interested in. So, the big question today is how to motivate yourself to reach an audacious, massive goal. And I'm joined by Louise Jones, who is a perfect person to talk about this because she's a sports and performance psychologist. Like, I love getting psychologists onto my podcast to talk about these massive subjects. So we met very recently, and one of the most exciting things about Louise is that we have a lot of life stuff in common. So
We
we've
do.
bonded
We do.
over family private stuff. But we met at a networking event a few weeks ago, and Louise did the keynote at the beginning of this networking day, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is like the first person to stand up and do this presentation. It was brilliant, like really, really interesting, and really set off the presentations really well. So we had a chat, and I was like, you got to come on my podcast, and here you are. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. It was great, and it was lovely to meet you on that day too.
Yeah, no, it was a good day, lots of women, and um, it was a really good sort of motivational speech to start off the day. But yeah, so tell me about you and sort of what you do and why you do it. What is your why?
What is my why? This is always the hardest part of any kind of introduction, isn't it? What do I do? And I end up talking to everyone else about their lives and what they do. So in terms of what I do as a sports psychologist, I've been doing this for the last 20, 25 years. And what I do is support athletes, coaches, performance directors, sports systems to enable athletes to thrive in not just the training environment, but the competition environment. So they have a greater opportunity to be able to achieve what they want to when it matters on competition day. I guess the key competitions that I've been working a lot with have been Commonwealth Games, Olympic Games, Paralympic Games. I've also done a women's Ashes tour, a women's Rugby World Cup, etc., etc. So I've done a lot of various different sports competitions over the last 20, 25 years. And just, I love it. I do it because I remember way back, I used to be an athlete myself, not particularly good, but national level athletics. And I remember
Just national level, not that big.
way back, and at school, actually, it was, and I was doing athletics at the time. And one of my friends at school went over the high jump and broke her arm, unfortunately for her. And I remember when she was recovered and she went back to doing the high jump, I remember her just finding that really difficult. And there was no physical reason. I knew it was all psychological. I thought that's really fascinating. I'm really interested in how she can actually overcome that and get back to competition. And I think that just interested me. So I think between the combination of the fact that I love people, I really am curious about what makes them tick, what gets them going, how they can achieve what they want to, what are the barriers that get in the way. So I love people and I love the brain and how it works and how weird and wonderful and interesting it is. And there's so much to learn about that and how we then interact with the environment. And then when at uni, I was either going to do sport or I was going to go into forensic psychology. And actually, I thought I liked sports psychology because it's a really proactive space to be in. It's not about really, I mean, it's about overcoming problems, but it's actually how can I be better? And that's what I love about Fritz Perls once said, you don't have to be ill to be better. And I loved that phrase. To me, it's about not always going, I've got an issue with this, I've got a problem with that. It's actually, hang on, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to go. How do I get there?
Yeah.
And I like that environment to be in. So kind of those two combined. And I was lucky to know early on that was what I was interested in.
Yeah.
So I just followed what I was passionate about and have so far had just an amazing journey of sports psychology. And in the last kind of 5-6 years, worked more in the corporate world in performance psychology. So taking all my learnings from high level sport into the corporate business world, doing some business coaching and some team development work, and thoroughly enjoying that as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really cool that you sort of knew what you wanted to do from a young age, and it's just been the journey throughout your career, and you're still enjoying it?
I think I was very grateful because you look at your family life and where you fit in, and I'm one of three, and I've got an older sister and a twin brother, and my older sister kind of was the first and did all the first, and your parents go through the first, right? And my brother was the kind of golden child, followed in dad's footsteps, so I was kind of left to my own devices, which was great, and could
Yeah.
then just follow what I wanted to follow. So I was very grateful for being kind of second daughter, middle child, and so I was allowed to kind of follow my passions, which was, and that's where I've got to. So I still love, and absolutely every day love what I do. It's so varied; you never know what's going to happen one day to the next, and what you're going to have
Yeah.
to deal with and manage. And yeah,
I
I love
think
it.
they're like the best jobs in the world, aren't they? Where like things, I love the unpredictability of my job, where I just don't know I do know what I'm going to be doing each day, but it's different stuff each day. Like to be like talking to you today is totally different to yesterday, where I'm like recording some content, like promoting hair shampoo, and it's just
Yeah,
I love the randomness, and like requests come in, and it's for like something completely different that I've never done before, and I'm like, okay, can I do this? And quite often I think if I can't do it, that almost pushes me more towards it, because then it's like, right, just push yourself out of your comfort zones and do something that's quite scary that you've not done before, which gets me on to sports goals. So I have noticed, with a lot of men and women as they get older into their 40s, um, because I'm one of these people, we set these like massive like fitness goals of something like quite impressive, quite crazy to aim towards. And so many people I know do triathlons, or decide they want to be an Ironman,
yeah.
or decide they want to cycle from John O'Groats to Land's End. These really crazy goals. And my big crazy goal that I'm going to do next year is I'm going to do a triathlon, an Olympic length triathlon. I'm not doing a sprint one. I'm doing a proper one.
Yeah.
Sorry, a sprint one's fine, but I wanted to set myself a really, really big goal, and I'm sort of in the beginning sort of training throes of it, and all these questions just keep coming to me of, so I suppose number one, why do we set these really big goals, particularly when we get into our sort of middle age, isn't it? It's like, do we feel like youth is running away from us, and we want to set something special?
And there's going to be, I mean, you could say easily it's midlife crisis hits us. What do we do? I
Yeah,
think, I think I mean, there'll be individual motivations for each person's reason for making those choices, I think. But yeah, I think there's maybe a gap at this age in terms of, and I guess there's probably a middle classness about it as well, because triathlons and Ironmans are not cheap. Just like
yeah, that's
anything,
totally
an
right.
Ironman's a
I'm
good
just
couple of
working
hundred
that one
quid.
out. Yeah,
Then you gotta get a bike, you gotta get a wetsuit, you gotta do all the training. There's a lot about that. So I think there's something about the kids growing up at a certain age. There's something
yeah,
around having a bit of money. There's something around, okay, where am I in my career? If I'm not quite happy with my career, I need something else to show me that I've still got stuff about me that's important. I don't want to be losing all the fitness. We generally, from the age of 30, lose our natural fitness. So we've got to
yeah,
keep our aerobic and our weight, going to the gym and our strength up. And how do we keep that? How do we keep staying fit? Well, actually having a goal helps us give purpose to staying fit and
yeah.
healthy. And you might start on a sprint distance triathlon or Olympic, but then you'll end up doing a half, 70.3. Then you'll go into an Ironman because you've done all, you've ticked those off. So what's the next one? There's an enjoyment around it in terms of the social side.
Mm,
There's a challenge that you get, a positive, that intrinsic motivation that you feel when you do a training session, you complete it, you feel good anyway because you've got your happy hormones from doing the exercise. But then you're like, yeah, I can do that, brilliant. So you feel good about yourself as well. So there's a psychological reinforcement. So you want to keep doing it. It's quite exciting to say to your mates, hey, I'm gonna do this. And it feels good, and they're like, "Yeah!" And they get really behind you. You can do it with sponsorship. I've got a friend who started to learn karate with her kids and was like, okay, by the age of 40, I want to be a black belt. Amazing. And she is brilliant.
Wow.
And I think
That
there's
takes years.
I know. I'm just, and these things inspire me. And I do. I have often, every so often, I have an email or a message saying, "You don't know me, but I've got your contact off somebody, and I've decided to do an Ironman. I'm really scared, but apparently you're someone I should speak to about it." I was like, "Okay, let's have a chat." So it's learning about yourself in that comfort zone, right? You stretch and you're like, okay, you learn a bit more about who am I, where are my limits, what do I want, and it also takes you away and gives you perspective about the rest of your life, which is really helpful, because maybe sometimes you're so engrossed in your work or so engrossed in family life, having something else that actually is for you, because you can feel you're doing everything for everybody else. Where do I fit in? What am I doing for me, which is really important. That's self-care. So there's lots of different reasons, and I think for me personally, it's really important when someone does set a big audacious goal that you know the reasons why you're doing it, because actually along the way and through the challenges, that's going to keep you grounded, because you might lose that along the way.
Yeah, I was gonna say to you. So I officially started my training the beginning of September.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was like so excited when I met you like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was like, this is perfect timing. I have to talk to Louise about my triathlon. So I've like engaged. I've found some like triathlete and Ironman type people on the internet who have been very helpful. I've got some friends who I'm going to be doing it with in May. Anyway, but they don't live anywhere near, so I need to join a local triathlete group. I have figured that one out. But so I've got this training plan that's been given to me by the manager at my gym, and it's quite intense. It's like a lot of training, and like the first week I went for it and I did the 2 long cycles, I did the 2 long runs, I did like a swim. I think I exercised like 6 days out of 7, and I was like, I can't maintain this. So it was quite interesting to start with such enthusiasm and like telling everybody I was going to do it, and then actually realizing that that's too much, and I maybe just need to build it up. And also, I always thought I'd be fine. I always thought that the cycle bit would be really easy. So let's break it down. So an Olympic distance triathlon is 1.5 kilometer swim, followed by a 40-kilometer bike, followed by a 10-kilometer run. So I'm all right at swimming. I know I need to have some lessons to improve my efficiency and stuff. And I thought that the cycle would be fine. So I went out and did a road cycle, and it took me like maybe an hour and a half to do 27 kilometers. And I was like, oh my, because I was on a mountain bike for a start. So I know that I had the wrong equipment, but it really just filled me with the fear of not being able to do it, because it took me so long just to do the cycle. So I'm now at the point of, have I set myself too big a goal? Because that's one of the things I wanted to cover with you. It's like, how do you choose an appropriate size goal? Like, have I bitten off something too big here? And now I've told everybody I'm doing it, so I've got to do it.
So, I mean, one of the reasons why you tell people to do it is so that it helps you stick to it, right? So there's a bit of a motivation around that. And it's May, so you've got a long length of time to get there, right? You're just at the start. You've got plenty of time for an Olympic distance triathlon. And I guess rooting to what I came back to last time was, what's your why? Like, why did you choose? What were the reasons you decided to sign up to this Olympic triathlon?
So, we're going to get quite deep now, but so my mum died when she was 58, and since turning, and I'm 47, so it feels this is getting very deep, but it feels like I've got a bit of a like ticking time bomb in me in some respects. That as I get older, it's really, really important that I stay super healthy, and that I keep my weight under control, and my cholesterol is fine, and my hormones are all at the right level, and I protect my heart health, and my visceral fat is all good. So I'm a little bit paranoid about all of these health things, because I absolutely do not want to die when I'm 58. And to add to that complication, um, so my mum had a heart attack, my dad had a heart attack. They both died at similar ages. My brother and my sister have both had heart attacks as well, but they survived. But there's just this impending sort of health fear of I can't let previous sort of not looking after myself properly. I just can't let that happen anymore because I'm now at the age where I just have to sort it out. So I was like, right, get something really big in place. And I've been thinking about a triathlon for a few years because I really enjoy the sport, like watching it. And, you know, I'm really inspired by the people that do it, you know, the Brownie brothers and all those wonderful stories. And England are generally very good at triathlons as well. So I just sort of put two and two together, and this year I was like, right, just going to do it because I know that I can also raise a shed load of money for Grief Encounter, one of my favourite charities. I can sort of tie it into my business as well because I can, you know, write about it and how to motivate myself. So there's quite a lot of reasons, but mostly it's because I don't want to die.
Just on the note, there's loads of good English triathletes, yes, but there's lots of good home countries. So the Welsh, Scottish, and Irish triathletes are really good too. Just putting that out there.
Yeah. Sorry.
Just living in Wales, and
Yeah.
we know how this goes. So, I mean, really interesting. Firstly, thanks for your vulnerability and openness, talking about the why, and this is like the stuff I deal with, right? So, and this is really important to understand that when you set these goals of what your aims are, to really fully understand that, and that's your why. I would also hold these are big goals. I'd hold that big goal lightly. Is it that big? It's a goal. It's something you want to achieve. You don't need to attach the word big to it because it doesn't sound like it's helpful at the moment.
Yeah.
So I would go, you've got a goal, and the main reason you're doing it is to allow you to be healthy, right? Healthy and happy. You're going to have this fear based on the situation that's going on, and that's totally understandable. That's okay. Fear can also be motivating in a positive way, right? Just shouldn't be the only motivator. It can be a motivator, but not the only one, because then it doesn't help. So, but it's about remaining healthy. So that's really important for you to know and come back to the purpose of what you're doing, why you're doing it, because then you can go, okay, I've started off way too quick. I'm doing 6 sessions a week, you know, 1 a day. I've got 1 rest day. Wow. I want to be healthy, but this is too much. I also, within it, it's not going to be healthy if you're sticking to that whilst overworking, sorting out all the family stuff, and then you're really stressed. That's not healthy, right? You're going to be burnt out within a month, right?
Yeah.
And then you're not, helpful for anybody or anything. So let's have to think about what healthy means. You decided to go for an Olympic rather than a sprint, but not a 70.3 or an Ironman, because you realise that, maybe an Ironman as your first triathlon would be a big goal, right? Like that's, or slightly ridiculous, but some people do it. And I know some people who've done that as their first triathlon. So I would think about, okay, what is it that I need to do? And look at, like, you've got till May as well.
Yeah.
So I would look, right, May and work. That's what do I want to achieve in May? Maybe my goal is just to finish the triathlon. I don't even have to do a time. I'll just be happy finishing and feeling comfortable in Lycra, because generally that's what happens when you move into triathlon. You've got to wear a lot of Lycra. And you've got to work out, is the swim going to be a wet? I don't know. Is it a pool swim or is it a lake swim?
Pool swim, actually.
Pool swim,
Yeah, it's Crystal Palace triathlon.
Yeah. So, because with the triathlons, you've also got the transitions, which they call the fourth, right? Your T1 and T2. So you've got to manage that. So there's a lot within the triathlon itself, okay? But it's super cool and super fun. And the main aim is to remain healthy. So for you, it's the training, really. It's the training, getting into consistency and good habits and healthy habits, right? So it's focusing on that and going, and that goal in May is going to help me achieve that. So it's got to be realistic. You come back to how we set goals, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be realistic and achievable. If it's way out of your comfort zone, it's going to be, you're not going to do it. If it's too boring, it's an easy, you're not going to do it. It's got to be kind of in between. It's got to fit your life as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth going back to your program with whoever's setting it and going, right, I can actually probably only do this amount of swims, bikes, and runs through the week. Can we start slowly, achievably?
Yeah.
And then once you're achieving, that's going to positively reinforce you. So that intrinsic motivation is going to go, I've done all the sessions this week. Yay. What's happening next week? All right, cool.
Yeah.
With a bit of flexibility, because life throws stuff at you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We both know. So life throws, so you've got to be realistic. And so I would break it down a little bit further.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that
I like that.
in terms of the aligning it all with your purpose of staying and remaining healthy?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I can manage 6 sessions of training a week, maybe in like April or May,
There you go.
not
Yeah.
quite in September.
Yeah. And look, and it's getting darker, right? So
Yeah, and you can't really soon. You won't be able to go out like road cycling.
yeah, and you'll have to get a turbo
Yeah,
trainer and all of that stuff for gym, so it's just working all of those out, but knowing actually the aim is, the focus is remaining healthy. So how can I do that in a way that's gonna work?
yeah. So what happens like and like with the people that you coach and stuff? What happens when sort of events come along? I'm thinking like injury or big life events that stop you from training. How do you deal with those kind of obstacles when you've got this, whether it be I'm going to compete in the Olympic Games or whether it be I'm going to do a triathlon next year? It's almost the same
Yeah,
goal and concept, isn't it?
yeah. I'm dealing with the setbacks. I think it's
Yeah,
I mean, the bane of every athlete's life and coach's life is injury, right? Because a lot
yeah,
of those are uncontrollables.
yeah,
I mean, one of the cyclists going towards the Olympics fell down some steps, didn't they? And then they were injured, so they couldn't actually go to the Olympics. So it's all of those things that just in the uncontrollables. It Which will be the same. It's the same if we go back to your example of the triathlon. There's loads of uncontrollables in the triathlon race. So, for example, on your bike,
yeah,
you get a puncture, right?
yeah,
So you can do all this training, and then on the day, and you see it in the Ironman sometimes, people they've had like 3 or 4 punches, and I don't have any more inner tubes, I'm done, and it's not their fault. They've done all the training, but they've just had loads of
yeah.
punches on the bike. So it's a real
Or
challenge.
they could give up.
Yeah, because they've got them. Yeah, they want to ride around with no wheels.
Yeah,
So it's really
I've
hard.
not even thought about punctures. Oh
I
my
know.
god.
There's so many skills. Stick on your mountain bike with like a really like massive tires and a closed road. There's easier triathlons to do, right? So it's working out what course you want to do and stuff. That's another conversation. So, but it's dealing with the uncontrolled injuries are horrendous, right? And then it depends on what
Mm,
kind of injury you've got and what severity, because
mm,
you've got career-ending injuries,
yeah.
right? So athletes who, and I've dealt with that, in rugby, where they've just got onto the senior team, they've had 1 or 2 caps for the senior team, and all of a sudden there's a bad tackle, the leg broken in such a significant event that they can't play again. So rugby career done and dusted. You're dealing with
Mm,
that. That's obviously a real challenge. There's lots of transition around that. There's a grief process that you go through
mm,
with that, and you're grieving a career, you're grieving the leg, you're grieving kind of what, and then there's what next, and then you've got the whole spectrum of injuries. So the first thing is to find out what's the diagnosis of the injury. So it's how there's something that's happened that's uncontrollable. What can you do to manage the uncontrollable part? But also then there's got to be some controllables that you can then deal
yeah,
with as well. And then we would tend to focus on what can you do rather than what you can't do.
yeah,
And also realizing that you're dealing with a human. So if you want to cry, cry. If you want to laugh, laugh. If you want to have some time off, have some time off. Be human. If you want to indulge in just feeling sorry for yourself for a good hour or 2, go for it.
yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah,
limit your time on that,
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's really hard.
But that, I think that's almost that's like life in general, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's how to deal with setbacks because we have setbacks thrown at us on a multiple occasion on a daily basis. And I was thinking about this yesterday, because I had yesterday was Thursday, so I had a tough meeting, and my immediate reaction, I was talking about this last night because I was out for a drink. My immediate reaction was to go and buy something sugary just to like give myself some comfort after like a stressful meeting. And it's a bit of a tactic, isn't it, to get yourself out of those unhealthy coping mechanisms when these setbacks happen, and switching yourself into more healthy coping mechanisms. But what I then I did eat something sugary. I have a sugar addiction, and it's a really difficult one to like get over. But I then went out and did a 10-kilometer walk, so I sort of balanced it out. But And then I've just been to the gym this morning, and how I'm doing my cycling training is I'm doing loads of spinning classes, which getting used to the bike, number one, and getting used to locking my trainers in, the clippy in trainer things. Sorry, that's really technical words.
You know, the clippy in thing. I know what you mean, so it's fine.
Sports psychologist. But that's how I'm building up my endurance at the moment, is doing spinning, rather than going out on roads too much. And money saving tip, I'm buying a secondhand bike off one of my friends.
Yeah. Does it come with a free turbo trainer as well? That's what you need to access.
But no, it's a really good bike, but I'm not still up to cycle it.
Setbacks are always hard. I mean, one of the main therapies that I use is acceptance and commitment therapy, which I really enjoy. And one of the main things around that is about psychological flexibility. That's what we work towards. So it's not about kind of being, I have to do this and I have to do that. It's about, okay, this is the scenario. These are my strengths. These are my values. This is me, who I am. How can I really see this experience as an observer self, so from a bit further away. I always use my hands a lot, so I know you can see this, but people listening can't see what I'm actually doing with my hands, moving away. And a real understanding of kind of how it all plays out, and how do I be flexible, because life throws us stuff. What can I use within that? And it's okay to feel how I'm feeling right now. How do I actually use my emotions, which are always, our emotions are always valid, right? They are completely valid. They tell us loads of cool things about ourselves. So how can I use that rather than fight against it? And how do I manage that? How do I not get too attached and drawn into certain scenarios, certain beliefs that I might be, my brain might be giving me reasons for that aren't helpful? How can I look at those in different ways? And so you can flex around all the different scenarios of what's going on in your life around that, to support you in being you authentically in this world, but also to manage what you want to achieve. So I like that. I like the thought of psychological flexibility.
Yeah. And giving yourself a break, that like shit happens and you can't avoid it, because it goes back to sort of control, doesn't it? Because you were talking about uncontrollables and controllables. We can control so little in our lives. Like, we don't actually know what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes in reality, do we? And we can control what we put in our body, what we eat, what we drink. We can control making ourselves go to the gym, but you can't really control your thoughts, can you? And you
can work with your thoughts, and you can understand them, and then you can you can train. So in terms of competition, you can train to have the thoughts you want, right? So whatever we kind of marinate our brain in is what our brain's going to be like, right? So if we constantly are going through negative thought patterns and negative thinking, that is generally what's going to come out. And the opposite is true, right? So we do have a level of management and understanding that we can use with that. Because sports psychology is proactive, we will warm up those things. So we will plan what the athletes will think while they race, compete. And then they will do that as you would physically, right?
Yeah.
So racing participating, what verb am I going to use? Participating in a triathlon for you, you would break down the swim, the bike, and the run, right? And whilst you're swimming, I would put some thinking that you've practiced along the way. Otherwise, your brain is doing nothing, and more than likely, because you're a bit worried about how it's going to go, you're going to have a threat response. So your brain's going to go, oh, you shouldn't be here. You need to get out of the water. This is awful. Oh, you're going to get punched in the face in a minute. Oh, it's horrible. So, but instead of that, you go, right, I want to go to the first buoy here. This is a 2-lap swim. I'm going to sight and I'm going to count to 3, and then I'm going to breathe. And we're going to 1, 2, 3, breathe. 1, 2, 3, breathe. And that keeps you in the moment, keep you in the present.
Yeah.
Keeps you focused on that, not focused on anything else, because we can only ever have one thought at a time. And thoughts work on addition, not subtraction. So you can't get rid of a thought by going, I don't want to think of that. But what you can do is add in a thought, and then you're thinking about that thought, not the other thought. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's so simple. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so really important to remember, thoughts work in addition, not subtraction.
Yeah.
So you add a thought in because you can only think of one thought at a time. So you practice and you think about, what thoughts do I want to have that's going to give me the best opportunity to perform how I want to perform in that moment. And you work on that and you warm it up. You warm up your physical stuff. So let's warm up your psychological stuff and practice it in training. Because when you race, you're racing as a whole human being. So you need to practice as a whole human being and get out there and do that stuff. The same as you would in the corporate world. You warm up the psych stuff. You warm up. Yeah, I did a session the other day on listening and got people to warm up their listening before they go into a meeting. And they all looked at me as though I was like the weirdest person in the world, which I probably am, or one of them. But it's like, what? Warm up our listening? I've never warmed up listening. But how important is listening in a meeting? And
oh my
really
gosh!
But you don't warm it up. No. Don't even know what to do with that. So we had a whole kind of session on that. Really interesting. Loved it. People were like, okay, see how this goes. But yeah, so it's warm. You've got to warm stuff up. Like before a hockey match, I play hockey with my eldest daughter, which is brilliant. And I get all the girls on the team to just shout loads of stuff up because I'm like, come on, we've got to be communicating on the pitch. Let's warm up our vocal cords. Talk. Let's go. Shout to each other. And they're all like, they hate doing it, but they realise it does help. So. They love me, really.
Oh, I love it. So what happens, when you hear, particularly in like marathon runners and stuff, where they hit like a wall of can't carry on, like, well, people do carry on, but how do you get, I've never experienced hitting this wall because I've never done anything so sort of physically.
So I would suggest when you hit a wall, it's normally to do with a physical nutritional thing. So a lot of it with the Ironman and marathon is they haven't got their nutrition right.
Yeah, because it's normally like 20-ish miles.
Yeah. So I would say start off with sort out your nutrition, keep the energy levels up. The other one would be, from a psychological point of view, would be you break it down, right? So at that point, everything's probably overwhelming you, right? And you're having a freeze or flight response. So at that point, breathe. If you're on the last leg of an Ironman or an Olympic distance, you're on your 10K, I would just walk and then just look at is there another lamppost? Get to the next lamppost, get to the next feed station, the drink station, get to the next corner. To run and just break it down. Like, how do you eat an elephant? One little bit at a time, right? I mean, I wouldn't eat an elephant, but you know the analogy. So just break it down, one step at a time. You'll get overwhelmed if you're future thinking. So do what needs to happen when you're in that present moment. That's what I
and because I suspect by the time I get to the run at the end, I'm going to be feeling quite stressed. And it's I think what will help me is, because I'm used to just going out and running.
Surprised. Lots of people get relieved when they're on the run because they're like, now it's just me and I can run and it's controllable.
Really?
So, the uncontrollable was on the swim and the bike. It's like, it's just a run. And if all else fails, I can just walk it.
That's what I was going to say. That worst case scenario, I'll just walk
it. Yeah. And as I say on the bike, if you come up with a number of punches, you can just walk with your bike around or do a wheelie, depending on which punch has gone. Just round. Swim, you can just breaststroke it round. There's always a way.
Yeah.
But it's having those what if scenarios in your head and have planned those out, right? What people tend to do is when they're getting nearer to the race, they go, oh my God, what if this happens? What if that happens? And they stay in the what if, and then they start panicking. You've got to work,
Yeah.
okay, go and work on the what. Okay, what if, your wetsuit comes undone? Or what if your goggles come off when you're swimming? What would you do? You go and have a plan and go through all of that. And I would do that
That
3 weeks before the race. Do
yeah.
all your what ifs 3 weeks before the race, because then after that you then be thinking, you want to be thinking what you want to happen, right? And that's what you want in your head, right? Knowing that you've dealt with everything that could go wrong.
Yeah. So in an episode, so I think this is episode 14. In episode 12, I interviewed a psychotherapist,
Yeah.
and we were talking about how to prepare for a really stressful meeting. And she said exactly the same thing that you've described. She's literally like, think of all the worst things that could happen in that meeting and prepare yourself for each of them. And do you know what? I've always thought that you should go into scary situations almost like really optimistic and just preparing for the best that's going to happen. But actually, like that's two psychologists now who have both said, like, prepare yourself for actually the worst thing to happen, and then you're literally ready for it, aren't you?
Well, normally the worst thing or the worst things that could go on are the uncontrollables, right?
Yeah.
And in that moment, when those things happen, it's really hard because you're panicking, you're emotional, your irrational brain is focusing, you're not going to make good decisions. So if you know that, if you've planned it before, you're going to be using your plan from your rational brain when you're feeling emotional. So you're going to make a better decision, which is what you want to happen, right? So that's, and also at the time when it's happening, your brain go, hang on, I've planned for this. What was the plan? Okay, let's do that. Rather than having to go, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And your brain's going, I don't know what to do. Well, and then you're going to go into your threat response, right?
Yeah.
So it helps you regulate yourself going through those plans beforehand, knowing that you can't plan for everything. But most time, if you go through everything, there's normally something that's quite similar, or you go, what do I do if there's something that's completely unexpected? What do I do then? Well, you breathe, you stop, you think about it. Or if you're in a meeting and someone's done something that you don't like, breathe, ask a question. So you just got a bit more time, so just have a plan to deal with it.
Yeah. I love that. I've got my list of questions, which I think I've meandered off totally, but it's been like, I just think there's so many people out there who I just think set these goals and don't think about the physical side, but don't necessarily think about the mental side. So I think you've covered so many useful bits of information for people.
The thing I would say about goals, I know we feel like we're finishing up, but the thing about goals is they're your goals, right?
Yeah.
And the goals are about helping you motivate yourself in a direction that's helping you. So if you're not going in the right direction, I would come back to the goal and go, hang on, what was it I wanted to achieve? Because if it's not the right direction, it's not the right goal. It might be the right thing, like you doing a triathlon sounds like the right thing, but if you're so focused on getting all this training in 6 times a week, that's not helping, but that's not actually the goal. It's, the right goal.
Yeah.
The goal is about remaining healthy.
Yeah. I think you really hammered it there. It's not the thing in May at all. It's the having a healthy heart.
Yeah.
It's making sure all those measurable health things are all within line. Yeah. Good at your job.
Thanks. Like I know what I'm doing, is it?
I know. It's like you've trained Olympic athletes and got people like doing amazingly well in like the best competitions in the world. I'm so in awe of you. Like I'm so fascinated by the world of psychology and what psychologists do. I absolutely love it.
Hey, I have an easier job than the athletes are the ones that actually have to go out and do it. I'm an easy one in the background, just kind of supporting. They're the ones that they're amazing. I'm inspired by them.
Oh, I think they would all say they can't do what they do without their coaches and their psychologists and their nutritionists and their physios, and because there's a massive team that backs up
Huge. Yeah,
every athlete, isn't there?
yeah, huge. And it's about, as we talked about in the Nurture Network, it's about that, how getting the right team around you, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that flows in quite nicely to the setbacks as well.
Mm.
I one of my wonderful healthy coping mechanisms is I have like a set of three girlfriends that I will leave voice notes for when I just need to empty like the
Yeah,
stuff out of my head. And I'll quite often say to them, I don't need you to reply. I just need to like talk to you in this voice
yeah,
note and just get it out of my head. And that's part of your circle, your
yeah.
village support
Great.
network.
Yeah, love that. So good to do, because it's easier getting the circle. It's then you've got to use your circle.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Right. Okay, we have overshot the time. I always do because it was so interesting to talk to you. Can people find you like online, like maybe on LinkedIn and stuff, if they
Yeah,
want to
I'm on
like?
LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. Yeah, they can find me. So
Yeah.
they can. Then there's some random videos of me talking about sports psychology online somewhere. Google Louise Jones sports psychology. I come up and talk about random things. But yeah,
Yeah.
I am. I am available. Yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best way for LinkedIn and Insta.
And what's your like next sort of what's the next sort of big competition coming up that you're aiming for? It would be the Commonwealth Games, wouldn't it?
Yeah, now we know they're in
Yeah.
Glasgow. Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
Commonwealth Games, and then you're talking LA Olympics and Paralympics. Woohoo! Yeah.
Oh
I mean,
God.
it's great that the Commonwealth Games are on. I was a bit more excited when it was on in Australia, but it's gone to Glasgow, but it's great they're on. Glasgow hosted a fantastic one last time, so it'll be good to
Oh,
get.
I love Glasgow.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
wicked city. Yeah.
yeah. It'll be
Cool.
good.
All right then. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure.
Lots and lots of invaluable tips there that I know people will really appreciate. All of the people that listen to this that have set all these audacious goals and they're thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Well, now you know. So yeah, thank you ever so much.